All right, thank you very much. How many of you have used Twitter Bootstrap before? Okay, how many of you have used Twitter Bootstrap 3? Okay, so most of you that have used it. Hopefully I have something useful for you that have used it. This is really meant to be an introductory course to it. I find that the documentation that Twitter provides for their Bootstrap project to be exceptional, and I would refer you to that to learn all the intricacies and details of what they provide. Hopefully this will give a little crash course in getting a project set up and how you might use Twitter Bootstrap on your next project. So first of all, what is Bootstrap for those of you who are not familiar with it? This is a quote directly from their website. It is a sleek, intuitive, and powerful mobile-first front-end framework for faster and easier web development. So what does that mean? It's basically a set of style sheets that you can apply to your HTML pages, and it is they have a JavaScript jQuery plugin that runs along with that to give you some additional functionality. We're going to start out by walking through a mock website that you might want to create. If you were a Pirates of the Caribbean fan, you may want to create a fan website for them. So we're going to walk through what that might look like. So let's say you went to getbootstrap.com and they have a few templates to get you started. You found this one that's got this carousel slider there. You copy and paste their code and you dump it into a page, and you're really excited because you have a website. So we need to fill that in with your content. So you're going to grab some good pictures of pirates, and then you're going to change the captions and fill in the buttons. You're going to change the nav bar up there to be white so it stands out a little better. You can fill it in with your links you want. Go through here. We can quickly fill in some information of some of your favorite characters from the series. You can fill in these little features, and in no time you've got your fan site up and running. So once you have it set up, we're going to add a few things. Up there in the nav bar, we're going to put a search and a sign-in button, because of course this fan site is going to have authentication and all sorts of secret features for people that have signed up and that have accounts. So first of all, let's look at a little bit of code. I know that's really small. I was hoping for a bit bigger of a projector. I will be posting URL to this presentation afterwards, so you can look at that. Basically, here you can add, this is showing some code you can add to that nav bar, or you can put in a form that's got a search field and a button, and these are all the classes used here are what's provided in Bootstrap. And you can add a button up there in the nav bar as well, and we'll see here's the results. We get this nice looking search bar, a little sign-in button, and not too much work to get that in. Okay, the next little piece, we want to have a modal dialog when you click sign in. Instead of taking it to another page, we just want to bring it up on screen. So this is the basic code for a generic vanilla modal dialog. This is what it looks like here with that code with Bootstrap. We're going to go in there and we're going to change the header and the body in there. We're going to put a form in here. This shows a basic email address and password with a remember me checkbox and a submit button. So very basic, pretty quick to get that in there, and then a little snippet you can add to that button that you put up there in the nav bar. The data toggle attribute is set to modal, which tells the jQuery plugin that button should toggle a modal dialog, and then the data target attribute is set to a selector, in this case sign in, the ID sign in -modal, which is the ID for our new modal that we want to pop up when we click that button. Once you have that in there, you click the sign in button and you get your sign in form. You can post that data off wherever you want, and you have an authenticated user. Okay, next we're going to talk about if users are signed in. We want to replace that button there. So on your servers, if you have an authenticated user, we don't want a sign in button there. We want to have maybe their username with a little drop down, with a few links. They can go to their profile or sign out, do some other things like that. So this is the code you could paste in there for that. You add this drop down class on a list, and you've got a drop down toggle, which is going to be the link that actually toggles this drop down, and a few links inside of that. Once that's done, you see we now are signed in as Captain Barbosa. We can click on that, and you get this nice little menu with the links you've specified. Okay, coming down here, we're going to add some quotes for these characters. We want when the user clicks on the images or hovers on the image, we want it to show a little popover with our favorite quote. So we can use the popover widget that Bootstrap provides. And you can see here, it's just setting a bunch of data attributes on the image itself. We have the data content, which is the message that will be displayed. There's an optional title field that you can put in there that I've left out. There's placement, which is where the popover will be relative to the item you're putting it on. So above, there's top, left, bottom, and right. And then the data toggle tells the jQuery plugin that you want that image when clicked to show and hide that popover element. And then this data container is an optional attribute which tells it where to put the popover in the DOM. Normally it appends it as a child of that element. In the case of it being an image, it can't do that, so you need to specify somewhere else for it to go, and body is a good place as any. Then a little snippet of JavaScript there. We select that image by ID and call .tooltip on it, and that activates it. So now we get this nice little quote there. We can add those to all of our characters, and we have a pretty good looking fan site. Okay, so we're showing here a little bit of the responsive design. So as you change the size of this site, so this is more of a tablet size, we can scroll down. You can see those 3 columns have dropped down, and we have these little articles that have changed their formatting a little bit. If we go over to more of a phone size, you can see that we can still read our content. It's still usable even on your phone. And this is all straight out of the box. I haven't done anything special other than copying and pasting their template and filling in some things and adding a few elements that we've talked about. So Bootstrap is nice in that way that you may want to come in here and tweak things a little bit for your mobile experience, but at least you have something working without a whole lot of work on your part. One of the core features of Bootstrap 3 is their responsive grid system. And that allows you to lay out your content in a way that will change in a reasonable way on any sort of device. The core grid unit, if you want to use grids and have it always be in the grid, you'll use the prefix col-xs- and then the number of columns you want that column to span. So with Bootstrap, it's a 12-column grid, and that col-xs, extra small, will, like I said, always be in those columns no matter what size your device is. And then they have breakpoints set up at 768, 992, and 1200, and this is the width of your viewport that they're considering there using media queries in the CSS. So with those, as your screen, if your screen gets to 768 pixels wide or above, then anything that you have in the col SM, or the small column, will turn into columns where those will be just in order vertically when you collapse. I'll give an illustration here. Here's a little bit of what that might look like if you're wanting to set up a bunch of different sized columns. That top row there is every single column, and then you can specify the classes on each cell within that column, giving them different widths. And here's a responsive one. So these so all of these have an extra small and a medium grid class set on them. Those first two, so the screen we're looking at is in the medium range. So those first two that we're looking at are going to use that medium column. So that the first on the top left is a column 8, and the one on the right is a column 4. And the second row there has 4, 4, and 4 of the medium size. And the bottom one has 2 6s set for the extra small size, which is going to also apply to any other size that we haven't specified. If we shrink this down to a phone size, you can see now it's ignoring the medium columns, and it's using just the extra small columns that we've set. So that first one is 12, meaning it's spanning the whole thing. Then we have that second row, there's a 6 that's going halfway across, and then you see a 6 and a 6 and a 6, and then 2 more 6s at the bottom. So this gives you an idea of what those grids can do and how you can change the layout of your content based on your screen size. With that, we're going to jump over into another core feature of Bootstrap, which is the forms and the inputs styling that they provide. They make it very easy to quickly put together forms, and they provide a lot of nice styling for a lot of the common form controls that you would find on a website. So here we have we're going to build out the sign up page for our Pirates of the Caribbean Superfans website. We've already got the nav bar there at the top. We're going to start out by adding a little bit of code here to the page. So this main element that we're adding has the class container. And with Bootstrap, that centers all your content and will make the size change based on your device and pad it out appropriately. So when you're on really large screens, it will be larger, and then as you hit the breakpoints of different size screens, that container width will decrease down to the size of phones. Within that, they have this page header widget, which gives some nice styling to a regular H1 tag. And you see here you've got your nice H1. There's some nice spacing above it, and you've got this horizontal rule underneath it. That's all part of that page header class. Next, we're going to add our form. Okay, so the first field we want to add is our name field that we're asking from the users. We want to do a horizontal form, meaning that we want the labels and the inputs to be on the same line horizontally. So we give our form the class form-horizontal, and inside of that we create groups of form elements with just a div and give it the class form-group. So within that group, we're going to provide space. We're going to put our label first. We're going to use the grid system here. So we have this small column that's 2 wide. Then we put name in there. Then next to that, we have our input that's inside of an 8 wide small grid. And then we have an empty 2 column cell on the right. And we'll talk about why we've added that in just a moment. But this gives you your basic form that will look like this. So you've got your name label there on the left, you have your actual input there, and then you've got some extra space, and the input is centered on the screen because of those the 2 grid 2s on either side. Next, we're going to add some more options. So we've got a standard select input here and a few other things. We're going to ask them for their rank, their email, their password. We're also in that little 2-column space on the right, we're going to add some help text on the password. We're going to say they need to enter a password between 4 and 32 characters. You can see down at the bottom of that, or maybe you can't see because it's small, but there's a utility class called help dash block you add around your text on the side, and that will give it a kind of a muted tone normally, and when you have a form in an error state, which I'll get to in a little bit, it will also highlight that according to what kind of error you have. So we put that little note there, and you can see we have now these three additional form elements with their labels, and we have the little help text over there for our password. There's a few other helpful inputs that the Bootstrap framework provides. One of them we're going to talk about and show here is a set of radio buttons. If you don't want the traditional little circle radio buttons and you want just a set of regular buttons that behave like radios, you can use their jQuery plugin has something for that. You can set up a group of these radios, and if you give them the class of button on the label that wraps the actual inputs, then it will hide the inputs themselves, and you use the data toggle attribute on the button group, and the plugin will then make sure that as the user clicks on those, it will behave as you would expect a set of radio buttons to do. So here we're going to be adding a question to the sign up, wondering if our users are mutinous. If they are, we may not want to let them in. So here's our set with the jQuery plugin. As the user clicks on these buttons, it will just toggle back and forth as you would expect a normal radio button set to behave. The counterpart to this is the checkbox set. If you don't want a regular set of checkboxes, but you want a set of buttons, you can do the same thing, wrapping your checkboxes in the labels and putting those inside a button-group div and set the data toggle to buttons on there. Then your plugin will handle that. We can find out what appendages they may or may not be missing. In this case, we're missing our right arm and left leg. Makes it hard to get around. Last thing we need to add to our form here is the submit button. Simple there, we wrap that in a form-group. The form group class, make sure that everything is spaced out nice and evenly. If you don't have that, then all your inputs would just be smashed together, and it's a convenient way for you to wrap all those, all your labels and inputs in those, and to make sure that they display nicely. So add our sign up button there, and we're just about done with this form. So when the user submits here, we may want to have some sort of feedback, right? We may want to display some error messages if they haven't input correct information, or some validation. So a little bit of the markup that we can add an alert at the top of this form. If we submit it to the server and it comes back saying you need a username, we can display that information right at the top. Or if you're doing validation client side, you can have this DOM element shown and hidden via JavaScript as well. So using this alert class, you can put a message at the top of your screen. The plugin will take care of making sure that X button, if you include it, closes it if you want to. So we can say, please enter your name. We also want to add some visual indication of the field we're referencing, just to make it easy for them to find as they look back down the form. So we'll go back to our code, and on the server when we're generating this, we can put the has-error method on the form group. If you do that, it will change the style of the label and the input and any help text. In this case, we want to put some help text where there wasn't any before next to the name, just letting the user know that it's required, and that's why it's highlighted in red. So once we add those things, you can see it lights up in red and is easy to find in that form. Once again, the responsive elements and the grid system will play into this. So tablet view, this is breaking down past the past the small breakpoint into the extra small, which is why we're no longer seeing the labels and inputs and help separated into columns, but they stack. You can see here, this form is still easy to use, easy to navigate, easy to consume. And on a phone as well, you still have these labels, inputs, and the help text just goes underneath. So there is a lot more to Bootstrap, and apparently I should have made more slides to go along with those. Bootstrap comes with a core set of typography styles, so all your headings, your paragraphs, your lists are all taken care of and look nice and match their overall theme. They have styles for tables, both bordered, unbordered. There's code styling, so if you have blocks of code or pre-formatted content. They have a set of icons that come with it, which are very nice. They're vector-based icons, which you can just, they're actually text icons, so you can put them in anywhere that you would use text, and they scale with the normal font size of whatever you're putting them in. It makes it very nice. They have breadcrumb widgets. You can throw at the top of your page if you need to include that. Pagination widgets, media elements where you have maybe an image with captions or a block of styled content that goes along with those. Labels and badges, so you can create, along with the list groups and things, more things that look more like what you're used to seeing on your phones and stuff like that, with the little indicators of, if you're doing a message client, you can have unread indicators and stuff like that. They have a lot of that stuff built in. There's panels, wells, which give kind of an inset look to things, as well as thumbnails, which can images by themselves or with matching content. I would really encourage you, if you're interested more in Bootstrap, to go to getbootstrap.com, because their documentation and the depth that they go into it is very, very good, and is much better than any presentation you could probably get on it, because they have examples for everything, and it's really easy to just copy and paste their examples. Questions? They go to certain parts of their JavaScript stuff will not work on IE 8, but they do generally support IE 8. Obviously, you're not going to get a lot of the border radius, and they use a lot of CSS3 things, but they try to make it degrade nicely all the way back to IE 8. So if you're going back further than that, good luck. But it does support to IE 8. So. Okay. Well, if any of you have any other questions, feel free to come talk to me. And go check out getbootstrap.com. And thanks for listening for these short 20 minutes.